you're a wine judge.
Yes, I am.
And that's on the international circuit, is it?
Yes, I've been a wine judge in capital city wine shows in Australia since about 2002, mainly looking at the Hunter Valley and the Hunter Valley Boutique Show, where I'm the chairman of judges. However, it's very easy to look at a lot of Australian wine and just become very, it's not quite a cellar palate, but it's looking at just a mainstream Australian style, which is a great thing to look at, but it doesn't really give you a worldly perspective on what the world of wine is all about. I judge with Decanter in the Decanter World Wine Awards in London, and in 2009 judged with the International Wine Challenge in London, which are actually run in about the same week in London, which is curious. However, it does give this fantastic opportunity to look at thousands, and I have to underline thousands of great international wines over a window of probably 14 days of judging. And that really gives this capacity to calibrate my mind to what the international market is doing, to look at where great international wine sits, and by association Australian wines, and even more critically my own wines in the international marketplace. So judging is a magnificent way of getting a snapshot of what the world is doing.
So when you are having to taste and judge so many wines, like what sort of system is used?
Well, all judges in Australian wine shows, it's quite straightforward, because Australian judges think of wine in much the same kind of manner. International wine judges, for example, an Italian wine judge will look at wine quite differently from an Australian wine judge. I guess you could say that an Italian winemaker will be after a different style of expression in wine than an Australian winemaker will be after. So it's taking on board a whole new mindset, a way of looking at wine, which is, again, giving respect to the fact that the world is a big place. Wine is meant to go with different foods. Different cultures will use wine in a different way. That's all to drink, but perhaps not as a poolside drink on a hot afternoon. Perhaps it's more something that they'll enjoy in a different dining experience with different styles of food. For example, I still haven't worked out what you can drink with pickled herring other than vodka. But it's interesting to look at,
yes,
at how they look at wine in Sweden, for example, how they look at wine in Canada, how they look at wine in China. It's a totally different perspective they have historically and in their dining culture. However, judging brackets of wine, some wine classes might be only 4 glasses of wine in a class to compare, which is easy. It's easy to remember what 4 wines look like from one to the next. In some of the large classes in Australia and offshore, there will be perhaps 150 Chardonnays from a current vintage to be judged in one go, where you have to remember what the first wine tastes like as well as what the last wine tastes like to determine which is the best out of that whole range of wines. That requires a lot of memory, and it requires a lot of positioning. Generally tasting them all 2 or 3 times just to reinforce where they sit in relation to wines on either side of that range of up to 100 glasses or so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it is interesting, but usually out of 100 wines, half of them can be rejected in the first tasting. And if those glasses are slightly moved to the fore so that they are further away, the next time as a judge you look through the bracket, you've thinned out half of the wines that probably won't merit any score in wine judging. After that, the second tasting, you can move forward the wines that are more impressive for some reason, and they will probably go on to be the wines that are given awards of some type. So from 100 wines, you've taken it down to 50 and then down to 25. It's a lot easier to taste between those 25 to find the very best wines there are in front of that contention for an award. But I have to stress that a judge will still taste every single one to make sure that where it's been placed in the first or second round is where it stays in the final evaluation of wines in a class.
No, okay.
However, that judging might take an hour and a half to do just 100 wines, which is frankly only about 2 minutes per wine to evaluate its quality. So it needs concentration. It's very tiring. A lot of fun.